But okay. Here we go.
What is up, besties? Welcome to the Fun with Friends podcast. I'm your host, Allie. I hope everyone is staying safe and sane out there. Today, we are throwing it back old school, and I'm being joined by one of the all-star podcast guests. And you may know her. She was the first guest ever on the podcast. She's braved cults and haunted houses with me. And she helped kick off season 2 with our, she was my co-host for the season 2 live extravaganza. And so please join me in welcoming my friend Katie back to the pod.
Hey everybody, it's me, I'm back. I feel like Uncle Eddie from, National Lampoon whenever I'm just like, I'm back.
Couldn't get rid of me, I'm back again.
I'm back again, shitter's full.
On today's episode, Katie is, which she's kind enough to be on the podcast yet again, and we are going to be talking about our experience with dogs on deployment. So Katie's going to be sharing some information about what dogs on deployment is and kind of what that whole process was like for her. And because I'm a squatter in Katie's home, I also got to experience life as a long-term dog boarder or foster person. So I'll kind of be sharing some of my experiences as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
we did have different experiences. So,
yes, we did.
That works.
I was not the responsible one. I was the fun aunt.
Oh, yes.
Okay? Not the disciplinary aunt. And listeners, if you hear what sounds like a soft, buttery snore, it is because we are joined in the recording studio, which is my bedroom, as we sit on the bed, by one of Katie's dogs, River, who is also known as the Butter Cow, Wibbles,
Meep. Pretty much anything that comes out of my mouth.
Yes, and she is curled up, nested into the blankets, just snoozing away.
Mm-hmm. But she's a little truffle hunting piglet, so she can get loud.
She likes to yeah.
She's a snorter, so
snarf. So she's if you hear something that sounds like snoring, and no, Katie has not fallen asleep. It is the dog.
It is the dog. Yeah.
and maybe towards the end of the podcast, we'll throw it over to Wibbles for closing comment.
She has a lot to say about the situation.
Yes, she did not have the same experience as either of us,
or even the other dog in the
house. Which, yes, for I guess reference, Katie, you have 2 other dogs. We have River and Rocky. Rocky is also referred to as Lobster.
Rock lobster.
Nope. So you may hear...
Or Quain.
Quain.
Because she's so
all
dramatic.
Caps. She's the queen of the house. So if you hear you hear a lobster or a queen or a river or a Wibbles or a butter cow, those are dogs.
And the same 2 dogs, not many different ones. We'll try to keep it to Rocky or River.
The same dogs.
Yeah.
And with that, I guess I'm going to toss it over to Katie to tell us a little bit more about what Dogs on Deployment is all about.
So, like Allie said, she is now pretty well versed in Dogs on Deployment. So I'm going to kind of stare at her while I relay this information she already knows, in a very awkward and loving kind of way.
I've forgotten it.
So yeah, Dogs on Deployment is a platform. It is a... what do you call it? It's a nonprofit organization, and it was founded in 2011 by Sean and Alyssa Johnson. And so it is a platform so that servicemen and women, and by servicemen and women, generally speaking, we're talking about folks who are enlisted in the military or are veterans in times of other kinds of need. Like when COVID kind of first started going, they also provided service for paramedics, nurses, doctors, police officers. Anytime there's like a real big deal kind of going on and folks need help, they try to provide a service for them as well. So what the platform does is it gives pet owners who are servicemen and women and families a place to create a profile and to post pictures and descriptions of their pets and to say, hey, this is my circumstance. I am either being deployed or I am being sent to training or we are having to move and we can't take our dogs with us, obviously. And so, or dogs, cats, birds, any pet. It says it's dogs on deployment, but they have many different kinds of pets on there. So, and then the second part of the platform is non-service members or service members who are stationary and won't be going anywhere can set up their profiles. And so you tell a little bit about yourself and you kind of lay out what your situation is at home. Do you own your home? Do you have a fenced-in yard? Do you have other pets? How are they? What is your preference if an animal is to come stay with you? And so you just make yourself kind of available. And what that does is it allows the service folks and the potential boarders or fosters to connect in a way that, they would not normally be able to connect. And so we found Dogs on Deployment, and I say we, I mean myself and my husband. We found Dogs on Deployment when my sister and brother-in-law, who are service members, well, my brother-in-law is now retired, but they were both service members and both being deployed at the exact same time, which was, to most people, is crazy.
Mm-hmm. Perfect timing.
Yeah, and it is kind of crazy. And so they had 2 dogs at the time and a son who also had to be, fostered. No, he went to stay with my mother, his grandmother, down back home. But so they live in North Alabama now, and so they had 2 dogs. One was a blue Staffordshire Terrier, big bull-headed pitty baby. I mean, just a big, big boy. And the other was Claire. She was a rescue pitty. She had been a breeder dog in a, I think, fighting situation. Something not really great. Mm-hmm. And so they were going to leave and have to be deployed. And they were looking for some way to find somebody to watch their animals. And so, unfortunately for them, we would have loved to have taken them. We loved Claire Bear. The blue, the blue Staffordshire Terrier, Beauregard. He was a strange one. He was a bit of an odd duck. Sweet boy, but just...
Well, with a name like Beauregard.
I mean, he would make eye contact sometimes and then, shit off the side of a couch. Look, all I'm saying is that dog, he said special things with his eyes and I was uncomfortable with him. So, unfortunately at that time, my husband and I had just moved to North Carolina. And we had gotten a temporary place. It was just a little single wide in a city, a little town, really, really, really close to where his new job was. And I was still traveling on the road with FEMA. And what that meant was I was gone anywhere, from, potentially every 45 days I got to come home for maybe like 3 or 4 days. Yeah. And then I was back at it.
Just constantly traveling.
So we already had our 2 dogs and stuff. And so there was just no way that we could watch Claire and Beau. And, my sister reached out to a bunch of different places. There were some really great bully rescues in Alabama. She reached out to them. Unfortunately, they didn't, they're doing their own thing and they tried, but they didn't really find anything. And she had found Dogs on Deployment through a Facebook or something like that. And so we checked it out and she put out a profile, but at this point, it was getting to be really close to them leaving. And so, at that point, it's really hard, especially when you have bully breeds. A lot of
Yeah.
people think of them as difficult dogs, and they're not really if you know how to handle them. And some of them can be pretty high energy, which we'll get into.
Yep.
But, any dog can be that way. But so, people who are used to taking care of them, you just have to find those people. And unfortunately, like, they were having a hard time. And so she had, like I said, I think she set up a profile, I'm not sure, but I think she was just worried that it wouldn't work. She wouldn't find anybody fast enough. And so they ended up finding somebody local who they knew through their police precinct. They are both police officers. And at some point during the deployment, things did not work out with Claire in that home. And it wasn't anything like really bad, but she just, that wasn't the right space for her. And so that individual kind of replaced her, rehomed her. And it was with a couple who were, perfectly capable of taking care of this animal and her breed and were used to that kind of thing. Unfortunately, they didn't know everything about Claire that there was to know. So they did not know that she was an escape artist.
Oh, yeah.
And that you could not leave her overnight outside in a kennel. She was getting out. And so, unfortunately, a couple weeks later, it took my sister a little while to actually find out where the dog went. She didn't even know that the dog had been rehomed. And then when she finally did find out, it was a hard time like getting into contact with these other people. And that was not their fault. It was just a really kind of weird back and forth and being overseas and all that kind of stuff. And then the unthinkable happens, and poor Claire Bear did not make it through the deployment.
Yeah.
So that was really, kind of the push to do dogs on deployment, because I was like, okay, let's make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I liked how you kind of named it Operation Claire Bear. I was like,
oh, yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Oh, yeah.
And I also kind of think of dogs on deployment as it's similar to Rover, like in the sense that you're setting, you have the folks with the dogs setting up profiles and the folks that can watch the dogs setting up profiles, and all the communications kind of done through, for dogs on deployment. It's a website instead of an app, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Correct
there
me
is
if
no
I'm
app
wrong.
that I'm aware of. It would make life a lot easier,
Yeah.
but there is not one.
Yeah, but instead of it being for like everyone, it's very focused on service members.
And they do vet them. They're not going to let somebody go on there and say that they are a service member when they are not.
Yeah.
And so they're, the company does a lot of stuff, and it's not just that. They also, they're always trying to get donations and stuff, and so they use donations to help fund bills, vet bills for animals that get sick, and their people can't really pay for them, especially disabled veterans and stuff like that. They try to help pay for moving costs, anytime,
nice.
especially if you have to ship that animal overseas. Oh boy,
yeah.
Talk about cost prohibitive. And, the service is not going to help with that.
Yeah.
The Army is going to be like, sorry for you. You shouldn't have got that dog.
Yep.
So they did a lot of other great stuff. I think right here recently and right now maybe they were, I don't know, they were doing a drive for spaying and neutering and stuff like that.
Nice.
So they do a lot of other different stuff, and boarding and fostering is not something that you have to do and be able to support the program and the people involved in it. Like they say, you can just share their posts when a dog is in need. Because the thing that we realized when my sister found it is like they had no idea this thing was even a thing. And so that's what I have found is that so many people who are service men and women or service folks, they don't know it exists until it's too late.
Yeah.
And so when you are posting your animal, and oftentimes, multiple animals
Yeah.
who nobody else wants to watch, there's probably a reason for that. And it's not to say that the animal is a bad animal. It's just that it's a lot for an individual to say, yes, I will watch that animal for months on end.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people can't just do that within a couple of weeks. They can't make that kind of commitment. And so that's when you run into a lot of folks just being like, well, it didn't work out on dogs on deployment. And we'll circle back to that at the end because I did learn things.
Yeah.
And I wish I had known them beforehand, because I would make sure that anybody I encountered knows these things. if they want to get involved with the program. And they definitely should. And I try to make sure that anybody that doesn't know about it hears about it and shares it with anybody. Like, even if you will never, ever, ever board a dog, share the post on Facebook, because you never know who's going to see that. And you don't know who is going to be like, oh, I could do that.
Yeah.
Or say, oh, I will be deployed at some point. I am going to need somebody to watch my cat.
Yeah.
You know, not just my dog, but my cat or my bird, you know.
Yeah. And I'll definitely put links to Dogs on Deployment's social media and their website in the episode description. And we will talk a little bit more about resources towards the end, because I think another one that's really important that I'm sure you'll probably touch on is the fact that if you are having troubles finding someone to watch your dog, they will help you with that.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people, just based on like what I've heard from you, is they give up, and then a lot of them are like, well, I have to give up my animal now, and like,
or place them
in
a situation that, you know, leads to
then
unfortunate circumstances in the best way. We'll put it the best way I can.
Oh,
but yeah, so, you know, we'll get into that. And there's a couple of really good resources. And there's also, Dogs on Deployment is not the only platform like this. There are other programs out there. And, oh gosh, I can't remember the name, and I didn't look it up because I was so focused on making sure I had information for this particular program.
Damn it, Katie.
But we'll see if we can't find it. But it is a much more involved program, and they vet boarders and fosters and service members alike. I'm not sure. I think I can't quite remember all the details, but it's very, I don't want to say restrictive, but it did seem like there were, you know, some like the guidelines and policies that they had did not leave a lot of room open, you know, for flexibility.
Yeah.
But I could be totally wrong about that. So we'll take a look and see if I can't locate that for the post.
We'll drop some links in the episode description. So definitely check that out, and check out our the social Fun with Friends social media, because I'll definitely be tagging them in the posts and sharing more information there as well. And so Operation Claire Bear, because of what had happened to your sister and brother-in-law's dogs while they were deployed, you and Anthony, your husband, decided to get involved with Dogs on Deployment. And I know it's something that you'd been interested in doing for like years, I think, before you got matched with Axel, the love of your life. So it took a little while. I mean, I had to be stable enough, and that's not to say that like my job wasn't stable and we didn't, you know, whatever. We had a house, and I was working quite well here in North Carolina, but we had to make sure that we were really settled in and that we didn't have anything crazy going on or coming up that we really wanted to do. You know, like short little things here and there where we needed to leave the house, that would be fine. We also have the 2 girls to think about, the 2 dogs. And so Rocky is 9 years old. She's more of a cat than a dog. So she can be kind of cantankerous. She's our old man in an old lady's body. And so she's going to be the one that, you know, makes or breaks it, really. And we did see that. Oh, yeah.
We did see that. And so then you have River. She is 7 years old. And so she is just really submissive, really loving, wants to please, and is just, you know, kind of happy to be anywhere Mom is at. And so that in itself sounds wonderful. And you'd think that would make for a great companion with another dog coming in the house. But we did also see problems with that. And so, you know, we're going to talk about all that kind of fun stuff. But we had to make sure that we were in a place where housing another person's animal was feasible for that long. And we also, you know, you go in and you make this profile, but you have to make sure you kind of wait, you know, you got to be judicious about the animal you're allowing into your house. Like I said, I have the dogs to think about, I have my husband to think about, we have our lives to think about. And so I set up my profile, and I get emails that tell me when there are new pets in my area. I've set a certain mileage radius. I live in North Carolina, so we have a lot of military bases, active military, families and stuff like that. So you get a lot of hits in North Carolina for pets in need, is what they call them. And I get emails. I'm on their Facebook. I follow their Facebook, so I see all their posts. And usually they'll post animals that are in need that are coming up, like the deployment dates are coming up pretty shortly. And so they'll try to get the animals out there because, if you don't go visit the website often, which is one of the things I kind of really wish they had an app or something that notified me in a little bit better way. I'm not the best about checking my email.
Checking in.
I really don't like doing that. Every day I have to check 4,000 other things and work email. It's just like my own personal email. Get out of here.
Too much.
Too much.
Too many emails.
So I really would like them to have an app, but that aside, so that was how I kind of would look for an animal that we thought we could help. And we had several that popped up that I would send messages. So when I see an animal, I go into the person's profile, I read all about them, and then if I feel like it might be a good match, you send a message and you say, hey, this is who I am. Feel free to read my profile information. We'd be happy to talk to you about caring for your fur baby.
Yeah.
And so we did that. I did that a couple of times, and I never got a response. And what had ended up happening is that the program had changed some of its security protocol, and so there were some user agreements and stuff that had been updated. And if you hadn't been on in a little while, you didn't know that, and you had to have gone in and said, oh, I did do that, and then do this like little training thing, I think.
Okay.
And if you didn't do that, your profile couldn't be public. So all those messages I thought I was sending, they weren't necessarily getting sent out. And so that, for a while, like that was like a whole year, and then I did, all that got updated and I was ready to go, and I was like, cool, we're getting there. And and then so it was like, all right, sending stuff, to people, and they'd be like, oh, well, we found somebody. Great. I will not begrudge anybody finding somebody to watch their animal. And then around about January of last year, pre-COVID, as crazy as that sounds, pre-COVID, we had met with a Black Hawk pilot, a young lady who's a Black Hawk pilot. She had an adorable Mr. Man's dog. He was so funny. His name was hilarious. It was like Brewski Derp or something like that. Like he was just, and so we met him, and we took River to a dog park kind of close to where they live, and met him and just kind of let them do their thing just to see him. And so with a lot of military deployments, things can change really fast, and they don't know what's actually happening until like right before. And so she thought she was getting deployed right then, and then COVID, and they were like, and then it turns out she didn't get deployed, or at least I don't think she did. We exchanged numbers. We felt like it was a fairly good fit, even if it was just for like a short, if she needed somebody to watch him for a training exercise or something. We're just like an hour down the road. She's welcome to call us anytime. And so after we had met with her, and that was kind of like, on the back burner, set that on the shelf, we saw Axel, our little buddy, our little cuddle bug. Axel. We saw him. He popped up on Facebook, and that face, I was like, oh boy, that face. He's a beautiful animal. He's so beautiful.
So adorable.
That's what gets him in trouble. Oh my God. And so we saw that, and I read about him, and he, neutered male. He fit that kind of set of check boxes for us, because we don't, Rocky, like I said, Rocky is kind of grumpy, and having female dogs in the house short term works out. We've watched our friends' dogs over the long weekends and stuff like that, and it's been fine, but she can be a bitch sometimes. And so I just didn't want to put up with that for 10 months.
Got something else though.
And so so we were always kind of looking out for boys who had been neutered, just because, they're less likely to mark in the house and that kind of stuff. So Axel popped up, and his dad was super great. We ended up right after quarantine started.
Yeah, it was early March.
Going to meet him at a dog park, because, deployment waits for no quarantine. But in fact, it did. It did. So we met them once at a dog park, and Axel was full tilt. He was Axel from day one. And so we met him and then went back to his place and kind of saw how he lived and stuff like that. And we had talked about, okay, well, if you're leaving tomorrow, like if you're leaving right now, very soon, like, we'll try to have you an answer about whether or not we want to do this shortly. And then it turned out they were pushed back. And in that time, one of the smart things that the program recommends that you do, and they lay out all these really good resources about, meet and greets and how to acclimate an animal or how to even get to know an animal before you say yes, which is very important. All those things take time though, and sometimes they don't have time, and that's what sucks. And that's why I try to put it out there, is like, get it out there before the month before, because you have to give these people a chance to meet your animal and to realize what they're getting into. And that's not their fault. They just don't know that the program exists prior. Like, it's just the way things time out. So we met Axel, and his dad got pushed back, and so he didn't get to leave as soon as we thought he was. And so that, okay, no problem there. And then the next thing you know, he says, all right, I gotta go. Like, I gotta go in, I have to go into quarantine. I need to drop him off like next week. And we were just like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Okay, sure, yeah, all right. And then there he was in our house
for 10 months.
For 10 months. Yeah.
11? Was it just 10? It was almost 11.
I think it was 10, I believe. It was somewhere in the middle of May that he dropped him off. Yeah. And then, so 10 months. And we just gave him back to his dad yesterday. And,
it was a journey.
It was definitely a journey.
So Axel is, let's see, he was 1.5.
He was 1.5 when he came.
And he is a pit.
Yeah, he is a bully, I would say mix. So he's like liver, his
liver lips.
His liver lips. So his nose and his mouth and everything are liver colored, they call it. And he is just the most beautiful shade of like this kind of reddish fawn and white, and he's got he's got a white stripe down his face. And
he's got like the most beautiful eyes. Like his eyes are just
just
stunning.
like an amber color.
Yeah, I'll post pictures because
we took some
nice
very
pictures
majestic
of him.
pictures. This dog has so many pictures of him.
Too many pictures.
At some point we made a private Facebook album just for his dad because it was like we all had so many pictures.
So many. But yeah, he's kind of like he reminds me a little bit of I'm like a baby horse, a foal.
Foal?
Foal?
Foul. He's a chicken. No, so he was.
But he's like gangly.
Yeah, he was real gangly because he was still so young, and so he's a bigger. He's not really stout and stocky. He's long limbed,
long legs,
big old bully head. Like that was probably the heaviest part of his body for the longest time. Was his head.
His head was still. I feel like was still the heaviest part of his body.
And when he got here, he weighed about 65 pounds, but he was just like his little butt was so bony. His little like hip bones like stuck out just because he hadn't really like worked into his like teenage muscles yet. He couldn't stand on one leg to pee. That was how like not
just
really
unbalanced.
Like he was just so gangly and funny. A tail like a whip,
oh my gosh,
and just lip flaps for days. Just so much mouth
so
noises.
Though. So cute. He was so cute, but he was a turd. He was a huge turd. But like he, for me, like one of the highlights was the cuddle time because
he was such a cuddler.
Yes, and because he was so big, he was literally like the length of my body.
Yeah,
and so we would just like spoon each other.
Yeah.
But because like as we've said multiple times, Rocky can be a little bit of a bitch. She's not huge on cuddling, and because River is attached to Katie always, I don't get a lot of River cuddles. So
at least to the degree that you want.
Not to the degree I want to be smothered with their love. Like I just want them to
and that was
me.
him. He made sure that if he was laying on top of you, he like tried to wallow inside of you. You know, like he felt like he had to like smush your face with his face.
It was amazing. I loved cuddling with the dog. I'm gonna miss that the most is his cuddle, our cuddle time.
But yeah, you missed Allie, you missed the first couple of months. You didn't actually come to the homestead until August.
Yeah, you had him for like 4 months before I got here. Yeah, thank God. I missed the acclimation period.
That was rough. The first 2 weeks of being on full alert all the time. And so, you know, we just went into COVID in March. And so I just started working from home fully toward the end of March because we had to like figure everything out. And then you have April, May, and June. I think he went to, I'm trying to think of when he went to training. So he went and got training with a trainer who does, his nonprofit is training service dogs for veterans with PTSD. It's Sergeant Roscoe's out of Johnston County, North Carolina. And he's great. He has a real connection with the animals. Axel absolutely loved him. But yes, those first couple of weeks until we kind of got there, like it was just, you know, reaction mode. How do we do this? How do we deal with this? And then just trying to figure out how we're going to live with this new vibe, you know, this new thing that vibes at a whole different level than the rest of us, because we're all pretty chilled out. You know, we're kind of set in our ways. The girls, you know, Rocky, like when she wants it, she wants it. When she doesn't, she does not. And if she wants to be an asshole, she is going to be an asshole about it. And to some degree, you know, an animal, these dogs are pure creatures and they have every right to live their life the way they want to. And so if she doesn't want people or other animals bothering her, that is her right. She does not have to be forced into that. So I did kind of force it on her and my husband, to be honest. You know, not intentionally, but that's, you know, this is the way of it. But so Axel was like a whole nother level of energy. And I had to really like turn up the radar because I had to be aware of where he was every moment of every day, what he was doing, how he was interacting with every other thing in the house. And after about 3 weeks, I felt so burnt out and I was just like, okay, well, this is your life now and you're going to get used to it and it's going to be fine and we're going to be fine and it's going to be fine. I just kept saying it's going to be fine.
High alert for 9 more months.
And,
we got this.
You know, eventually I did get used to it. We definitely had some ups and downs, but you know, it was a big change to the house and him leaving even more so, you know, because we've all been on that. It is really quiet. We've all been on that kind of level now. And so today is weird. Yeah. Today is really weird.
Yeah, he just had like he was, it's funny because when an animal, more specifically, when a dog meets Katie, there's a 99% chance that they're going to immediately fall in love with her and follow her around and just like become one with her and attached at the hip. And that is exactly what happened with Axel. He was like, she's my person. I die without her. Yep. If anyone else is near her, like another dog, I must also be near her. And so that was interesting.
It became problematic. Yeah, because as you may remember from earlier in our conversation, we already have one dog like that in this house. And she did not like that. She's not going to be aggressive or vocal about it, but she, you know, she makes sure she lets me know she does not like that. And then when she would try to get her time in, he would immediately come and push her out of the way. Yes. And then Rocky would get mad because he's pushing her out the way and she's protecting the, you know, the sister she doesn't really like, but that's her sister, you know, kind of thing. And so that was hard. That was definitely a hard part. And at some point I realized like he was, during that initial period, I kind of let him cuddle with me when he wanted to cuddle with me, like I was letting him soothe, and then I realized like I was doing him a disservice and that I needed to make sure he understood that I had boundaries and that I wasn't letting River do those things and so he can't do those things. And so, yeah, like everybody, that's where you come in, the fun aunt.
I was the complete opposite. I was like, bro, you want to snuggle? Let's snuggle.
Yeah, but, it was just, I had to make sure that I was giving him what he needed, not just what he wanted. And so some days that was a little harder than most, but it had to be done. And, then what it made for, though, was some really fun moments where, he's like, okay, well, we're learning something, or we're going on a new adventure, and he would behave really well. Like, we would go, and at the end of our walks, after he had been to the trainers and had learned what he needed to do, like a good dog, we would go and sit and watch the neighbors' horses in the paddock, and just let them, like, stand there and stare at each other. We called them the big dogs, and he would just love to, like, stare at them and be like, what? We never got up close or anything. That is quite a bit dangerous. And he is, still goofy, reactive turd head. So, like, I knew where our line was. So we had, we set a couple of feet back, and he would just sit there and be so interested in them. And so some of those moments were my favorite, and there were obviously moments when he was just being so sweet and so cute. He looked like a little gargoyle. He'd get so, like, existential crisis. He had, like, this
old man, like, belly, like, that would, oh my god, he like, probably one of the most adorable big dogs I've had. Like,
so cute.
I'm used to small dogs. I've had small dogs my entire life, and both Rocky and River are like medium, and I'm like, they're it's a good size for
solid potatoes.
That's right. Good. That's another name we call.
She's a Tetra Precious
River.
Yukon Gold, baby.
Yeah, Yukon Gold. But so I think Axel is the biggest dog I've ever lived with. When I think about it, so there's, like, adjusting, because you got to get, because, like, when a Chihuahua jumps on your leg,
it's different,
right? But when like 70-pound pit bully mix jumps on you, it's a different experience. Like, that shit will knock you over.
Yeah, so, if you're not ready, like, there were definitely days when it, you had to be ready. Or I've fallen in the yard multiple times.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those were some of my favorite things. And even though some of that was having to be the stickler for the rules and just kind of the referee.
Katie was the enforcer.
Yeah, that it is what it has to be, and that's fine. Unfortunately, being home every day for 10 months did not help his separation anxiety, and I don't know that there was anything I could do to fix it. I can only watch so many YouTube videos and listen to so many podcasts, and and it's just like, when you're just there every day and he's attached to you, there's just nothing you can do.
The noises that would come out of that dog's mouth,
like a Wookiee.
Like, she would, Katie would leave, even if she was just going outside with the other dogs, he would sing the song of his people, but it was like this weird, like, chewy, like,
it was just so ridiculous.
You could hear it like outside.
He was so melodramatic. Like, he just would flop his body. He was something else.
My gosh.
He was something else.
It was there were definitely, like, highs and lows for sure, which I think is realistic for any time that you're fostering or boarding or, dog sitting or anything like that, or with any pet. But overall, my experience, which was much different than Katie's, because
I think there were even times I had to, like, draw boundaries with you, where I was like, stop playing with his mouth.
Don't let him do that.
Yeah, tell him no, he can't do that.
She was training both of us.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. But there were even days where I was a little overwhelmed by his energy level, I think is a good way to say it. Because he was like
it was every day.
Pretty hyper.
Yeah, it was every day.
And he's young.
And on the days when he wasn't like that, it was because he didn't feel good.
Yeah, he was sick.
And he already, he had he has pollen allergies really bad and stuff like that. So it was always something. And I had, the other dogs have their own issues, and so we're used to that kind of thing. But, it can be a lot day after day. And especially when there's also the added anxiety of, this is someone else's, and this is their love.
This is someone else's.
Like, if I had to hand over River for 10 months, like, I would be out of my mind, especially knowing what can happen. So that's all I thought of was, this young man is going to do his duty, and I have to make sure that this dog survives intact, happy, hopefully, scarred minimally. Because there's a couple times where, as submissive as River is, he wanted to make sweet, sweet love to her every day because she's so submissive. Or, he just wanted to, like, be in her face and kind of push her around because she would just take it. And, like, to me, I think it was cuteness aggression, like, coming out in him. Because when you see it all cute, you're just like, cute. But I think she did that to him. And she would, some days she just wasn't having it. And she would get a hold of him and just kind of, like, bat him across the face with her paw. And he'd have, like, one little, like, bloop of hair missing. And I'm like, boy, why you gotta make the one dog who doesn't do anything to anybody
the sweetest
to
puppy
fight back? Why you gotta make her hit you like that?
Gotta give you back to your dad with scars on
right.
his face.
So thankfully, he didn't have any when I gave him back. Thank God.
Aww.
He worked all that out, and we eventually, that was at first, we eventually got to where we were much better about seeing when he was in that mood and making sure that didn't
pushing
happen.
it a little too far.
Yeah, and that was just it. He has impulse control. And so that was the experience. I mean, like you said, everything is real. It's real life. Anything that has to happen for months on end is gonna have ups and downs. Clearly, we've all been through this the last year, so we all know. I don't know if it'd have been any better if I'd have been working every day. I don't know.
I don't think it would have been any different, really.
I think it would have had been different stress-wise.
Maybe his I don't
think his separation would have been as bad, but I think trying to work on the things that we worked on would have been harder. I don't know. It's just so hard to say what if. But, now I can say, well, Operation Claire Bear was a success. We did it. We did it for her, and we did it for him, and we did it for his dad, and that's what counts. And, we we got in over our heads a little bit, and there were definitely a couple of days when I myself had a hard time and just sat on the floor and cried while I tried to put his gentle leader on his face, and he just didn't want it on him. And he wasn't being ugly to me or anything, but I was just like, hey, why won't you let me put it on? And he would sit there and try to cuddle, and then I'd be like, okay, can I put it on now? And he'd be like, no. And I'd just be like, oh my God, so it was definitely like something that I learned a lot from. I also learned a lot in my relationships with not only you, but, my husband, my dogs. Like, we all learned things about each other.
Definitely.
we all became like a unit, more so than ever. And, and so it was something to experience.
It's a learning experience.
Yeah,
sure.
Most definitely. And so today is weird because I know he's gone, but he's been gone before. He's gone to the trainers twice.
This is the first full day. Yeah, he just went home last night.
He just went home last night. So today is the first day. I did kind of reset the house a little bit after he left last night. So we kind of got it back to feeling, that we didn't need to have baby gates up and stuff like that. But my brain still thinks he's coming back.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's used to. So it's going to be a while before it's like fully in there that he's not coming back. But I also think that I did a really good job of making sure that I understood day one, this is not my dog. He's not here for me to get attached to him in the way that, like, oh, he's a foster without a home. He has a home. He has a dad. He has somebody that loves him. Yeah. And he's going back there. So I'm just really here to, like, be the non-fun aunt, and so I think that helped a lot. I think that made it so that my brain is just kind of like, well, he was here and he stayed his time, but now he's gone home.
And I think that's like, we've talked about this a little bit, or I've told you before, like, I don't think, like, I wanted to foster dogs for a while, and then I realized that I don't think I could do it because I don't think I could give them to a new home. I think I would end up like foster failing all the time. And even with Axel, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, he's leaving. And so I just hid away.
Yeah, you hid. Thankfully, I mean, you did give us a way to, put the dogs away, the girls, so that, his dad didn't have to come into them being in the same space and everything, because they'd have been like, who are you, guy? Because I initially had this whole like thought like, oh, let's, me and him can be out in the yard and his dad can pull up and they can meet outside, so that way all that energy is outside. And then it just kind of worked out. Like I had tried to make dinner and it was a really busy day and I had the dentist appointment and all this other kind of stuff, and so it just worked out, the fact that you needed some time away. We were able to put the girls in here with you, and they just kind of hung out.
Yes. I had to distance myself. I was like, I cannot watch him physically leave this house or I will like break down.
So he got in the truck, and when his dad turned around to just be like, all right, well, we're gonna go now, and I handed him his Frisbee, and he just kind of looked out the window at me, and I was just like, oh no, peace out, little homie. Like you would have had a moment. You would not have been able to do it. But I was just like, love you, daddy. Like go home, love you, daddy. But you could tell like he was very excited that he was home. At first he was just like, what? No way. Like, like it was almost like
he had the biggest smile
flabbergasted.
On his face, though.
Oh yeah, because you did get to see him a little bit.
I saw. I peeked. I got to say like a really rushed goodbye to him, kind of, which was perfect for me. But he had the biggest.
He was so happy.
Smile on his face. Like I hadn't seen him smile like that, I don't think, in this house that I remember. But he was just like so freaking excited. He
was really happy. So it was really great, and we are happy that we were able to do that.
Operation Claire Bear.
I'm so glad we made it. Oh my god, I'm so glad we made it. There's a couple times there I was like, we not gonna make it. Oh my god. It was hard. There were some really hard days.
Yeah.
Really hard. Just emotionally and physically. Like, he'll put the hurt into you. He's a big boy. Yeah. He's strong. And then sometimes he just hit you with his head, and you're like, well, there goes that one day I was really sure that he had like fractured my shin bone.
Yeah.
I was like, that's gonna hurt later.
That was one thought I had when he left. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna be covered in like bruises everywhere now. So that's good.
But yeah, so, to kind of wrap it up for you, I know you're keeping this one short. Some things I wish I knew, things we learned, would we do it again? We would be interested in looking at the program again as boarders or fosters when the girls are gone. And so that could be quite some time. I mean, they are 9 and 7, but even still, that could be quite a few years, hopefully.
Yes.
Because I felt like if he had been the only dog in the house, a lot of the tension and a lot of the kind of just the stress would probably have been taken out of it.
Yeah.
And I could have focused on him. Because it's just, it's not fair to focus only on him and not the girls. I mean, they live here.
Yeah.
And so having to split that attention up with an animal that needed attention, and that's not to say needs cuddles and needs, to be babied. No, he needed me to make sure that he was getting structure. What he needed. Yeah. And so I could only do that so much because there's only so much of me to go around. And so, like that's, we've discussed it. And so I think what we're going to be doing is, deactivating our boarding availability, but continuing to, put the program out there, talking to people, sharing pets that are in need, just mentioning things, maybe trying to hit up some of the volunteer groups.
I was going to say, they have a lot of volunteer stuff available.
Unfortunately, there's nothing really close to where we are in North Carolina, but there is at least one big group in Charlotte that does a lot of stuff. So, looking into stuff like that, things that I can do that is not, the full-blown life-altering situation. Like, I've seen people in stories through the program that will foster like 5 dogs at a time. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't even imagine what that is like. And I'm sure that these people love it, and they have some sort of magic that they work on these animals, and that it's great. But like, I don't have that level of like, I want to say excellence. It's just, that's not my ability. That's not the time I have. That's not the energy I have.
Yeah, that's a lot of
even
animals.
Just one, and so we had really tried to like get animals that fit our chill, but sometimes, you see it just happens. It's just a thing that happens. And so, We got Liver Lips Boy, as I like to call him, or Freckers.
Freckers.
Little Dobby. He always liked Dobby the house elf. He did develop a sock fetish while he was here.
Loved socks.
But, so that's one of the things we learned, is that we do not want to do it with girls in the house. So it may be quite some time before we look at that part of it again. And then the other thing that I learned was that there was a podcast around Veterans Day. Let me see, I got it down here. Called Home Base Nation. Had Alyssa Johnson on it, the founder. And just talked to her about founding the program, kind of what they went through, why they founded it, kind of their experience, and all that kind of good stuff. And she said a lot of things that I was not aware of. And I had never seen those things on the website. I don't know if she's mentioned them in other podcasts. She's on a lot of podcasts. So if you search her name, like in Google Podcasts, all these different podcast episodes come up where she's been on other ones. Now, a lot of them are going to probably be involved with, military and service and stuff like that. So if that's not your jam, that's not why we're telling you to go listen to them. We're just saying, like, if you want to hear what the owner has to say about it, those are places you can go. But Home Base Nation, I thought that was a really great podcast. It was from around Veterans Day 2020. And so she got on there and she started talking about how when people put their pets up, as pets in need, if you do not find someone who can watch your pet for you, if it doesn't work out before you have to leave, contact the administration, the management, and they will find a way to board that pet, or they will go out of their way to start, making phone calls, sending emails to the boarders who aren't hitting the algorithm, you know, and to say, hey, can you watch this dog? Hey, they will find somebody to watch your animal. And that is not something I knew. If we had known that for my sister, like, that could have been a game changer. So learning that, I try to make sure anytime I talk to somebody, I tell them that. Like, hey, man, if you are getting to, like, the week before and you have not found somebody, talk to them. Because they will go the extra mile to help you find something. And on the flip side, another thing I didn't know was that for the boarder, for the fosters, if there ever comes a time when you just really feel like you can't do it anymore, like, seriously, you're just like, this is not going to work out for whatever reason. It may have nothing to do with the animal. It may be on you. It may be like something changed in your life and now you just can't, money-wise, whatever. And because this is a free program, we do not charge these people to care for their animals. You do set up boarding plan. You set up a boarding plan where they give you all their information, all the records, all that stuff, and you figure out the best way to pay for food and to pay for the vet and all this other kind of stuff. So the way that we worked it out was his food and all of his supplements and all that kind of stuff was on auto ship from Chewy. And then when it came to the vet, I just paid that out of pocket and I was reimbursed for that. And that just was the easiest way for us to do that. And we did that, Venmo. Okay, cool, whatever. So you can work it out any way that works. But what I didn't know, and I don't know if it would have changed, it might have changed something. Because there was October, November was really, really hard. And for various reasons, but it was very hard. And if I had known that I could reach out to them for help, because even then they will say, okay, well, what do you think he needs? Does he need more training? Let's find somebody who will train him for free, or let's for a discount or whatever. Let's find somebody who will help in any way that you need it to. And if it comes down to let's rehome him, they will help find somebody to rehome him to. And so that is the stuff that I push. I'm like, hey, look, it's not just this person says, can you watch my dog? And then you're stuck with this dog that doesn't work. Or this pet that doesn't work. I keep saying, I'm sorry, kitty cats. I'm not leaving you out on purpose. Don't forget the birds. The birds. And the gerbils. I don't know. I haven't seen any gerbils. I'm always looking for, like, reptiles or like and stuff. A rat. Like, what's going on? But they never pop up. But yeah, so, it's that's the stuff I wish I had known. And that's the stuff that I make sure people know. And so if you're interested in finding anything else about that, I would highly encourage listeners to go and find some of her appearances on podcasts. And they have, YouTube videos. They have all kinds of testimonials and stuff. They're always putting really good, feel-good information out there about boarders and the animals who have been boarded and successful, boarding missions.
Yeah.
So it's just a really great program. I'm glad we were able to do it. Yeah, it's a weird day today. It is very weird.
Yeah.
It's a weird day.
You should feel really good about it though. Like, and I feel like you, obviously, I don't know how other people go through this boarding, process because I'm not living with them. But, like, you put in a lot of effort into Axel. I mean, you literally tethered him to your body at times. You were always watching YouTube videos or listening to podcasts so that you could, like, train him as best you could, working with the gentle leader. Like, you put in a lot of time and effort into trying to wrangle him.
Trying, not always succeeding, but trying at least.
But, like, I don't know, you should feel pretty good about it. And you accomplished your goal, which was to keep him alive.
That was that, like I said, that was the goal. And yeah, it's just weird because there's definitely some guilt about not returning a perfectly trained, service animal to his father.
You are not a trainer.
But, and like, yeah, like the logical part of me says there was no way that you could have done, you can't, like, even with the dog who wants to please me the most possible, it would take, a good while and lots of really very serious training for her to be a service capable animal. And I know that that's not whatever, I know that that's not a realistic idea or expectation of myself. Yeah. Doesn't mean it doesn't pop up every now and then. Be like, oh, shucks. I wish, I had done. But at the same time, then I'd have days where I'm just like, man, this is the best I got.
Yeah. I got him to sit today. That's a win.
He waited to eat his food until I said eat. Win.
No, I think you should be very proud of yourself for getting through it. And
well, thanks, friend. And I'm glad you didn't just go, you know what? Keep him out of my room.
No. I was more than happy to dog sit every now and then.
Every now and then. Although he wanted your socks and
my socks and my slippers, man. My slips were never safe.
And we couldn't let him have the RM socks.
He would literally dig through my hamper to get my socks. I must have good
He was a smart cookie. Like, as dumb as he was, as dumb and goofy and just completely like, what is wrong with you?
A straight turd.
He could be really smart, and that was the thing. Like, I knew.
Because he figured out how to open the
baby gate.
The baby gate. Figured out how to open his crate. Like, he was a little Houdini.
So he's him.
So cute.
Each animal is their own character.
Oh, so cute. But yeah, I'm glad because we actually thought about recording this podcast pre like way early. So I'm glad that we unintentionally put it off for almost a year.
Hello, 2020.
Because it worked out pretty well.
Put that off.
Now we had the whole experience to kind of reflect on and look back on. So it was quite the experience for sure. And I would recommend anyone that maybe you have the space and the time, or you just are looking for a way to help out. Definitely check out Dogs on Deployment. And
even if you can't do that, just share a post.
It
helps out more than you would think, because think of all the people that see it. And then I have so many people that I know who can't foster or anything like that. And because I share it, they see it and they share it.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going. And a lot of those people are service members, and I have a lot of family that are service members. And so the more people we share it with, the better traction it gets. And so the more opportunity you have for somebody to find the perfect fit. And that's, the perfect fit is probably not ever going to really happen, but a good enough fit. So we'll take it.
It'll do.
Enough fit.
So to close out the episode, I'm going to turn it over to Wibbles and see if she has any closing words for us as she slowly peels her eyes open.
Do you miss Axel, River? Is he gone now? Are you gonna miss him? Okay. Okay.
And with that, get out there, try something new, and have some fun. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. Be sure to check out the Fun with Friends podcast on social media. We are on Instagram at Fun with Friends Podcast. You can also find us on Twitter at FunFriendsPod1. You can also reach me by email at funfriendspodcast@gmail.com. And you can go to my website, cootscreations.com, for some fun little extras from the podcast. So definitely head over there and check it out. And as always, remember to get out there, try something new, and have some fun. Goodbye.